Hello and welcome to the Fifth Tile Podcast. My name is Jay Shalansky and joining me this week is Evan Bulris.
Hey, how's it going?
So we're a gaming podcast talking about, you guessed it, games.
James. All the James.
Yeah, but this week, I thought it'd be fun, Evan. Fun, interesting, maybe for everyone. So a while back, 2 years ago now, I tried to kickstart a board game. I designed a board game. I've actually designed a few that I'm still ruminating on, but I designed a board game called Cubicle Raiders and tried to kickstart it, and it failed. And so I thought it would be interesting for those of you listening to the podcast that are into Kickstarter games and or have been thinking about kickstarting your own game. You could listen to everything I screwed up, and we can go from there.
Okay, so I'm going to be an interviewer. Hi, this is Evan from GameJournalist.com Weekly.
Why couldn't you be Evan from the Fifth Tile Podcast? Why'd you have to make up something else?
It's not... Okay, all right, Killjoy. Okay,
Come
here
on,
we go.
Man.
All right.
We got to self-promote here.
This is Evan from the Fifth Tile Podcast.
This is how I failed my Kickstarter, by letting fools like this be involved. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Jeez, man. Where's my train of thought going? I don't know. You started getting real uppity about this. So, first question.
Because you were doing it wrong.
Because I was doing it fine. You were grumping. All right. What was your game even about?
Yeah, okay. So the game was called Cubicle Raiders. And basically what it was about was you are a manager in a office. And you get to pick from... We had 8 managers. You get to pick which manager you're going to be. And basically the whole concept of the game is to collect office supplies for seniority points, and then whoever had the most seniority points at the end of the game won. And what you would do is during the game you could recruit employees, and all the employees in your manager card gave you different effects and game kind of in-game keywords and stuff like that. And what you would do is you'd have 5-day work week, so there were 5 rounds. And every day you would go to a different department, and each department would need certain supplies, and you could trade those supplies at certain ratios to victory points or seniority points in this matter. And then you go to these desks, and you basically are going through their drawers trying to get supplies to trade in.
Okay, gotcha. So what was your demographic looking like for this game?
Yeah, so, and I don't know if this was a mistake or not, but the reason I went in this direction was because early on, I was talking to some people that were in the industry that had either had Kickstarter games successfully kickstarted or at game developers, or even at some of the manufacturers and stuff and suppliers, and they were like, listen, you gotta be creative, like zombies, all this stuff. It's too much. There's too much of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so do something creative. So I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, what's something that everybody can kind of connect with? And I think most people, not everyone, but most people have worked in an office, and so
or a job that needs supplies.
Right.
Of some sort. Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, okay, if I can make a game that kind of resonates with everyone inside at something that they've done in their life, then I can make this a more generic,
this could have been
a game
food,
sold at Target.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, cool. So what were your hurdles that you ran into?
Yeah, so the first one was I approached it like a marketing job. So I was like, okay, I have a product. Now I'm going to market it just out to the people with traditional marketing channels. I had a great website. I advertised. I spent, I collected some money, investment money, between myself and some other people to invest in the project. We advertised on Board Game Geek. We advertised on Dice Tower. We did all this stuff. But what I was missing was the traditional kind of Kickstarter, avenues, which was going to all these play tests and building a good fan base and building an email list of people I could email when the Kickstarter came out, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the first thing I did wrong. And our first playtest was at Gen Con, and the plan was to launch the Kickstarter at Gen Con and be like, okay, you like the game, and now here we go. And it was my fault, because instead of going to these events and like really like understanding how this worked, I just was reading the website, and the way they made play testing sound at Gen Con was like people would be walking by. So like I bought like this big banner, and with the images of all the characters on it and stuff, and it was like tucked away in some room in the back, so we didn't get the traffic I thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
And so I didn't build an audience before going to Kickstarter. I tried to use Kickstarter and normal advertising avenues as the audience. The second thing I did wrong was I was shooting too high for the Kickstarter. So like, how like most Kickstarters will have like some weird goal, like it'll be like $4,000 or something like that. Well, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I need $12,000, because there was like some of the manufacturers I was going to go through had a minimum that you had to order. It's like 1,000. And so like, I was like, okay, well at this price point, I need to make, I think it was like 10 grand or 11 grand to meet the minimum to get the order. Right. And that's at a professional level of manufacturing the game. And so I never would have made that. Because I didn't do the first thing, which was build the audience. And so like the goal was just way out of reach. So we never ended up making the goal. And I later found out after talking to people that what I should have done is use one of the smaller, on-demand manufacturers and just done a short run and made the Kickstarter like $3,000 and like
gotcha,
just to get like, so we could get like 100 copies. And then what would have happened was it would have been successful, and then once something's successful, people just keep pouring money into it, and then that's how you get a bigger game.
Gotcha.
And so that's where that mistake was made too.
Yeah, it's like when I really love a game called Root. And I got a copy of the core game, but the expansions are impossible. Like remember when Brennan, we talked about how Wingspan, right? Like the guy just didn't know. Like he got not bad advice, but like stable advice. But turns out he had this niche, this like lightning in a bottle with Wingspan. Root, on the other hand, they kind of knew it was going to be big, but they just didn't. Like it just went out so fast. So now to get into the expansions, they did a second expansion through everything's through Kickstarter. But now I have to pre-order through Kickstarter to get the first expansion and the second expansion. And then like, well, you're already spending like $90, so why don't you spend an extra 10 to get little different wood pieces and the mats? I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I had a cart of like $150. I'm like, I love this game, but what? So I had to like take a step back. So yeah, I know quite a bit about Kickstarter. Well, I know about getting like doing the buying, like adding in what's like the late backer bonus.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I wonder too, and some people made this point that maybe the thought was too unique, and maybe not everyone would connect with that as much. And like a lot of feedback, like playtests went well. We probably had like 30 or 40 people playtest, and everybody liked it. They had minor little things, but the comment we would always get was, "Oh, what would be cool is if you had like characters like from The Office or from Office Space, or or from like these different things."
IPs that you
and I'm like, I guess, but like that's not what I was going. I was going for like my own, you know what I mean? And it just, and then I had someone tell me too, like, so I got all that advice about not making it zombie space or superhero.
And everyone wants zombie space.
Yeah, and then someone was like, dude, you should have made this zombie space or superhero. It would have sold a ton. And I was like, oh god.
The thing, like, just right, hindsight's 2020. I'm thinking, man, it would be cool to have a shipping game. Like actual boats.
Yeah.
Because some of those are...
there is one. It's called Container.
Yeah, they do. They make some big ones, but they're big, chunky, and like not quick. Because yours is a small box and quick, right?
Yeah,
like, so getting the feel of a small game, like you can play... What's the playtime of your game?
The box is right behind you. I forgot off the top of my head, but here...
forgot.
Just grab that. This will be easy. I can look at it. Oh, yeah. So we said about 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah,
once you learned it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, it was interesting. It was kind of like we had the money. It was like a dice. You roll to see if you get one supply, or you could get double supplies, or no supplies, or you broke the drawer.
Yeah.
So like there was some variance in there. It was more of my whole like thought behind it was like it'd be a good party game.
Yeah.
Where you could bring, because like we had a lot of like text on the cards about like, flavor
humor,
text,
yeah.
and like, and one of the things we got was people loved all the characters that we had because they're like, oh my god, I know who this person is. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and so I think the idea was good. I think the execution and the like marketing and the footwork was bad, right? And like when we went to playtest, like I met all these great other game designers that were playtesting their games, and they would ask me like, oh hey, how many playtests have you done? And I go, well, this is our first big one. We've done, like, I sent it out to a bunch of people to play test that I knew throughout the US, and it went well with some feedback and stuff. But this is our first like blind play test, and they're like, oh, like, and then after talking to them and getting some drinks with them, they're like, dude, you should have gone to like 5 shows before you kickstarted this thing.
Yeah.
So that that was
Well, right, it's your first time,
right?
Like it's. And back then, you said this about 2 years ago. It was still kind of Wild West. Like the formula hadn't been. I mean, my buddy Pat actually has like a samurai dueling card game he's made. He's got cards printed and made. He hasn't like done anything with it. He still he brings it around with him, and he's like, if there's just 2 of us, he's like, hey, do you want to play this game I made? And like, so he'd be interesting to talk to about that too, just of different ideas. But like a lot of people could say whatever, but you've got a box with your game in it.
Yeah,
right?
so
Like,
I actually have
it exists, right?
Yeah, I actually have the game made. And this, the one we're looking at now, this is actually version 1. I have version 2 downstairs. Ooh. But like, I mean, it was good and people enjoyed it. I think I just, we just I didn't build up the audience the way I should have. And
no, sure.
I felt too at the time, and I'm sure it's even more so now, like, without an audience, like the saturation point for board games
it's insane right now.
It's overkill, right? Like, and I think the other problem too, like back then I was so entrenched in like kickstarting games, like I was obsessed with.
Well, that was a hot thing
games.
2 years ago. That was a real hot thing.
Yeah, and so I mean, you've seen my shelves. Like I have hundreds of games that I haven't even opened some of them. I haven't even played some of them once, and so like I just got caught up in the whirlwind of all that and. The other thing I didn't do very well was I only sent it to like a handful of reviewers, and you're supposed to like
bombard everybody.
Yeah, and there's supposed to be like some big reviewers, but I didn't know at the time, and I was just like, and then some of the bigger reviewers like Dice Tower and stuff, like they wouldn't do it unless you met this certain criteria that I didn't meet, and like it was just complex, you know.
Yeah, that's too bad. It's sad that it failed, but on the other side, like you've got. Your vision is something that you can play in real and in a box, right?
Yeah,
like that's actually like a finished product. Whether or not it hit like Target, that's different. But the fact that you've got not many people can say that their vision actually materialized into a product, right?
Yeah, that's true, and and it's interesting. It's nice to have it, I mean, I went to like some on-demand printers and got some stuff printed, and so I have a version of the game, which is cool. And at the time I probably had, I'm trying to think, I think I had 3 or 4 games in the works that I was working on, and this was really, it's funny, and this is something I would recommend to you out there, is like, don't let this get you down. Like if you don't fail the first time, like for me it did, like I put a lot into that first game. And it just absolutely miserably failed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't keep doing that. Like, I couldn't keep doing what we were doing. Like, it just wasn't. And then after, like, talking to some of these guys that kickstart these games, more power to them. But it was like, they're traveling all the time to all these shows, and they're not getting anything out of it. You know what I mean? And they're just, like, playtesting this game. And then finally their Kickstarter comes up, but then they didn't really make that much money on the Kickstarter. So I was just like... So all this time, how do you get that back? Like, how do you get that paid? Where's the payback?
Yeah.
Right? And the answer is that, like, there generally isn't a payback unless you have, like, some hyper successful games.
Yeah, the advice I've always been told is don't go into making a game to make money, because that's just not how it generally works, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to like set everybody wrong out there. Is it's not that I went into it to make money per
sure.
se.
I mean, like,
But that was a goal of
it would
mine.
be nice
was
to
make
make
money.
a career out of making games.
Yeah, or
right, like,
or even at first, I just wanted to
break even.
just break even.
Yeah. Like it's you some of the people who really make it, like the names like Knizia and Stonemeyer and Steve Jackson, right? Like, who is a crazy dude. If you ever read some of that stuff that happened to him back when he released, I think, Spy Games or something, the FBI raided his place because they thought he had intel secrets, but it was just a board game. Anyway, like these guys, like they had these ideas that were very solid and good, and I don't want to say got lucky because they put time and work to make it, but like it's the stars aligned a little bit, and then they got hit after hit after hit, right? They just could do it. And then their names, right? Like Garfield, Richard Garfield,
yeah.
right? Like he made, he's made Magic, and he's done, Keyforge. He also did Artifact, that game on Steam that was like this insane flop, right? Like it became a joke. Like he's lucky because he's got such a pedigree.
King of Tokyo.
Yeah, King of Tokyo is great. Like he's got a lot of good ones, but flops come too.
This other board game called Ghouls or something like that. It's like a Halloween like card game. It's all right.
It's funny because Robo Rally was actually started by him.
Yeah.
So he made it. So he originally, he was trying to sell Robo Rally, and he made, it's either one or the other. He made Magic to have something to do between Robo Rally, like in a board game convention, like to kill time, or it was one or the other, or he made Robo Rally to play between Magic events, like something happened like that. But because of one led to the other, and it's kind of interesting that those both became like big deals, like especially Magic. Now, geez,
yeah,
I got out of playing. I used to play Modern pretty competitively because I have to be competitive. If I'm playing a game, I got to be the best, and I have never been the best. But it's always like that drive to like, how can I make my deck better? How can I, like when we play Legion, like what could I do to make this list better? Mm-hmm. What could I have done right? It's just how my personality. This is what it is. And so when I realized I just couldn't afford to be better at Magic, that's when I cut. And then now that new set's coming out, like the Fairy Tale set with awesome art, and like I'd love just to draft it. Like I'd play for drafts.
It's interesting. I got big into Magic. I was playing Standard though, and like Friday nights and like tournaments, and I was all in, and I was winning, and I was doing really well. And then they rotated out, and then I just didn't know what to do anymore because I was playing this black-red aggro deck.
Yeah.
When like Spike Jester was out and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Dude, and like the Minotaurs, and I was like crushing people with that deck, and then all of a sudden they rotated and everything was gone, and I was just like, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, I'm looking just to get back into drafting something casual because I don't even really want the cards after I'm done. Like it's more just that's why Keyforge is great. But even I've fallen a bit out of Keyforge.
Yeah, me too. Isn't that weird?
It's not even that I don't like the game.
No,
I like it just fine. It just kind of like it doesn't come up in my mind of like let's play Keyforge, right? Like,
yeah.
We were all about it when it came out, and we went to PAX. We played it all at PAX.
Dude, I was obsessed at PAX. Yeah, I was obsessed. I mean, hell, the first bunch of episodes of this podcast were all just Keyforge. Like if you go back to the Crunch and Chaos days. But yeah, isn't that weird? Like, there's certain games out there, and I wonder because of the lack of deck building, where it's just you just buy a deck and you go play. Maybe that's why it's not as. Because the competitive aspect of that is so random, it feels like.
So, like, the dream of Keyforge, right, is you buy a random deck and everyone's on the same playing field. But then the guy who can buy boxes and boxes and boxes till he gets the best one that the generator randomly gave out,
right,
feels kind of bad. Like
right. And then who has time for that? Like,
casually, I like it a lot. Like, I'll buy my buddy Brad comes in the store, and then I'll be like, hey man, I'll grab a couple decks, let's just play. And then you can just play and then have a good time, and I'm like, cool, like that's it, it's over, right? Like, there's no more collecting, there's no more, I've got a box of Keyforge decks. I only keep like 5 or 6 ever. I give out ones I don't use, or I'm like, I didn't really like this one, here, you can have it. Like, go teach someone how to play, right? Like, pay it forward. So I don't keep a ton on me because I didn't really want a collection like my Magic. I gave all my Magic cards to one of my buddies. It was boxes and long boxes and quad long boxes and quad long boxes. I'm like, I haven't touched these in like 4 or 5 years. I don't own anything worth anything. Just take them.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because I did the same thing with some of the Fantasy Flight games like Netrunner. I got into that.
Rip.
I got into Warhammer.
Double rip.
Yeah,
Yeah, Conquest.
Dude, Conquest. I loved that game.
I thought that was good. Yeah, I thought that was real good.
I actually won a couple, store championships, and like I was
You
doing
got like cool mats and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I have.
really,
I have a couple of them. Like I was really digging it, and then gone. Like Netrunner, gone. That gone, and it just
Netrunner was sad.
yeah. But anyways, so it's just weird the state of games right now, and
flooded.
yeah, and then so what happens is kind of to tie this in was like right now, if you guys don't know, if you're just listening to this podcast, Evan and I run another podcast called the Fifth Trooper Podcast, which is just about Star Wars Legion, and like I became hyper focused on Legion when it came out, and that's literally the only like. We did some Keyforge stuff, and I was starting to get into that, but then that died, and just right back to Legion. It's just weird how these games ebb and flow.
Right, so no game is truly dead if you still play it. Right, that's kind of I think Luchetti said that, like, because we was joking about because right when he came up for Neo, it was like Netrunner had just kind of recently been a couple months ago said that it's out, and so he mentioned he kept the models he came to bring us in a Netrunner box, and I'm like, herk, Netrunner, herk, right? Like, sorry, man, stinks. And he said that, and we're both laughing, but I'm like, oh yeah, he's kind of right. Like, to that point is I hate when a game hits like X-Wing had this problem where back in 1.0 especially 2 it's fine right now, but 1.0 it hit like a point where it was figured out, right? Like, this is the best thing. So I would see the ships you're putting down, and I wouldn't even need to read the cards. I just knew what you had, right? I'm like, Cannon Biggs, okay. Or like Miranda Skurg, all right. Miranda Nim, okay. Right? Like, I just knew it. Which that's what I hate when a game gets like that. I love it when that's what Keyforge is nice. When you sit down, I'm like, I have no idea, right? Yeah. You got to play a couple games. And it's interesting because take like Underworlds, Warhammer Underworlds. Shadespire's gone for the championship mode. There's like a current play. They rotated it out, and that game never really got that way. There are warbands that were good, but they weren't like the deck, right? Like I didn't know what you had in there, and now with all the stuff rotated out, and the game's just like exciting again. Like, I'm so pumped to like put some models on the table and play that, because it's like that's why like Legion. I think that's where we're talking like, we're just waiting for the new stuff, right? Like,
right.
We'll get pumped again when the new stuff comes out. Right now, we're kind of in like a waiting room.
Yeah, no, it's all really interesting, and I think that's got to go back to the Kickstarter, and I think we were just in a sea of noise, man.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't do it properly. We didn't have our own following to kind of overcome that and to show that we were successful. We just kind of like, dropped our little drip in the ocean and nothing came of it, right?
Well, it's like releasing a game on Steam now. Like, let's say you made a PC game. Okay, it just falls into the void, right? Like, it's not that your game is bad, or it's so oversaturated with the amount of stuff that the odds of it picking up, it's not Magic, so I'm not playing that card game, right? Like,
yeah, isn't that interesting?
That's a thing, right?
Well, and I mean, I think Legion and X-Wing are perfect examples. And Imperial Assault, it's like you have and that new Marvel game coming out, Crisis Protocol.
Yeah.
If you have the IP,
man, that helps,
right?
Because honestly, like Imperial Assault, they made Descent. It's Star Wars Descent, and Descent's fine, but you don't hear anybody talking about Descent. Like, they don't have worlds for Descent, right? Like, Descent playing, like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's a Star Wars, like the name really like I bet if for whatever reason you got the Office names and you made caricatures, like, man, that would have been.
Well, yeah, and I mean the game doesn't even have to be good at that point, right? Like, I saw the other day there's an Office game, and I was just like, of course, like,
I think Rick and Morty Risk, like,
right.
What? Who cares, right?
Yeah, and it's just crazy, and so yeah, so that's the short,
a bittersweet
version
story
of my Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Eventually, so we're part of the whole Fifth Trooper network. Eventually, once we get our studio set up, Evan and I are going to do a playthrough of the game.
Yeah, why not?
On stream, just to show it off and have people take a look at it. So, but okay, I think that's going to wrap us up for this week.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. So we'll talk to you next week, everyone.
Everyone, stay rad.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.